Hello everyone! Today I have two very, very special guests. We have authors Amie Kaufman and Kristoff, the co-authors of this amazing book, Illuminate. So today we're going to be having a bit of a Q&A, talking about the book and about writing together. Ready to jump straight in?
Let's do it.
Definitely.
Perfect. Okay, first question. So how is your writing process together? Because I can imagine it'd be quite different than writing individually.
It mostly starts at the pub.
It does start at the pub. Well, we live on opposite sides of the city, so we get together at the pub. There's just a lot of tossing ideas back and forth until we start to settle on where the plot will go.
Yeah.
And then because these books are so weird, we start to work out what the format we're going to use for each document is.
That would have been pretty time consuming, figuring out how everything's going to be kind of presented in those formats then?
The master of spreadsheets.
Yeah. Oh, we're so good at
Google
spreadsheets.
Docs.
Imagine.
There's a giant spreadsheet of literally the hours and minutes that elapse during the book.
Gosh.
Well, so that you can say, you know, that guy can't run the length of a giant battleship in 2 minutes.
That's
so
so true. You've got to make it realistic.
Because readers will tell you.
They will pick up on that.
They will pick up on that.
Exactly.
But yeah, we found if we plotted any more than about 100 pages, we would get ahead of ourselves, and things tend to change as we write. We come up with cooler ideas.
Did you end up knowing the end point then, or general idea of where it's going to end, or you just totally just going in blind?
We had a rough idea, I think, where it was going to end, like huge explosive space battle. But other than that, it was pretty vague.
Yeah.
So who wrote what sections?
It's mostly divided up on character lines. So I do most of Ezra and most of Aiden.
In fact, I mean, that's kind of a reverse for us. Because in Jay's Lotus War series, he had a female main character.
Yeah.
And in the Starbound series, I usually write the guides. So for Jay to write Ezra and me to write Katie was actually the first time we've written a lead character that's our own gender. So that was...
Yeah.
And Aiden doesn't really have a gender. It's been interesting talking to readers as they've gone through the book, whether we've had some readers say they hear it as an it or a he, and some readers have even said Aiden's a she in their head, so that's been really interesting.
And the thing is, Aiden isn't it.
Yeah.
And the characters in the book keep also trying to make Aiden more human in their heads. Because, you know, they have conversations and arguments and debates with Aiden.
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to, except then they get reminded really abruptly over and over again that Aiden is actually an it because it's a computer. You know,
it doesn't respond to situations like they
like
would.
a human would.
Yeah.
And it's a mistake. It's often a fatal mistake to think that Aiden is like a person.
So obviously in the book there are a lot of illustrations and kind of playing with words around the page. When you were writing it, did you know how those pages were going to look? Did you work with an illustrator as you were writing, or did those things come afterwards?
They were pretty much there from the start. So when we were actually trying to originally, you know, sell it to a publisher, Jay mocked up 130 pages because, you know, in a past life that was his job. And in the final one, it's a combination of descriptions that we gave of what we wanted things to be like and stuff that our design team came up with that, you know, was even better than what we thought of. And Jay did a lot of the design as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had an amazing design team internally at Random House, incredible illustrators, and Heather, our internal graphic designer, is amazing.
Heather is
they did an amazing job.
We love you, Heather.
Why did you choose this format in particular, and how did it compare to writing in like regular prose, like a novel?
I thought it was going to be a lot harder than regular prose, and it actually wasn't at all. I think because it was suited to this book. Yeah. Because the challenge was, on one hand, you want a plot that is really going to hold up regardless. So that if you and I sat down for a coffee and I went, so there's a story and it's about a boy and a girl, I could keep you gripped just with the plot. But then once you bring in the extra elements, you want them to add something to the way the story is told. And so that was our focus on that. We started out with the idea of potentially it being an email back and forth book, and then very quickly realised that there were lots of different formats we could use in this situation. And that you need different formats to do different things. You know, an email or an instant message is really like an intimate up-close portrait. You don't want someone saying, so as you know, we've been on the run now for 6 months. Like,
it's not realistic.
Well, you know that. Yeah, you would never say it. So that's where, you know, the information releases and the security reports.
If the invasion hadn't occurred, what would Katie and Ezra's professions have been?
Katie she gets very good at hacking over the course of the book, but she's already not bad at it. She's pretty career focused. I mean, at the beginning, you know, she and Ezra have been arguing a lot about going to college. So I think probably she would have been in STEM and she would have, you know, been some sort of engineering or computer science. Yeah. What would Ezra have done? If you asked him, he would have said he would be a professional G-ball player.
Yeah, pretty hard to do that when you're living out in the boonies. I suspect he would have done what his dad did. There's a reason why he is on the planet that he's on. For that reason, I think he probably would have stayed as low profile as his dad. So while the mass carnage and thousands of people dying and chaos that came from the invasion of Firenze goes, it probably would have been good for his career at Prosperix, I think.
Yeah.
He
Dad
did
was just
something.
like working in the Hermium mines, you know, doing nothing in particular, and Ezra would have done the same.
I'm assuming that there was a lot of research that went into this book. What was the most fascinating piece of information that you came across?
I have the best ever. The best piece of trivia we found was that in zero gravity, because there's no air pressure, the boiling point of liquids is drastically reduced. So water doesn't boil at 100 degrees anymore. If you were to get flushed into the vacuum of space without a spacesuit, the radiant temperature being generated by your body would be enough to boil the liquid on your eyes and the saliva on your tongue. So before you died, the last thing you would feel would be the saliva on your tongue starting to boil. That's legit. That actually happened to a guy in an accident.
I mean, the good news is...
that's awful. Oh my gosh.
That would be a very brief problem.
Yeah, you wouldn't feel long.
Very soon after.
That's a strange sense up.
Well, if you want a
Boiling
slightly less horrifying one, it's that if you were to strike a match in zero gravity, it's actually gravity that makes the flame kind of like that.
Yeah.
And that the flame is just a ball around the head of the match, like a perfect sphere.
That's really cool.
And slightly less.
That'd look really magical.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. And it also
Although,
burns blue in low oxygen environments.
Yeah.
What, if anything, can you reveal about the future books?
We can say that everyone who makes it out of book 1 alive will be in book 2.
Okay.
But you will also meet new characters in book 2 as well.
So,
But like, don't worry, the ones who come out of 1 won't just be tiny cameos. They'll be
part of the story.
part of the story.
So chronologically, it carries on directly after book 1, so it picks up literally to the minute, I think, after book 1 finishes.
Yeah.
The focus is initially in a slightly different area, but everyone who makes it through book 1 has a role to play.
Book 2 answers it answers a lot of questions from book 1, but one of the big questions from book 1 is they were on the run for 6 months, screaming SOS and Mayday calls the whole time, and no one ever came. Book 2 is going to answer the question of why that was.
Why it never arrived.
Yeah.
Now I have to wait. This one's only just been released.
Book 1's Battlestar Galactica meets 10 Things I Hate About You, and book 2 is Die Hard meets Alien.
Oh my gosh, okay. You're not helping here. Well, I've also got some lightning round questions, so we'll just do a few fun little questions.
In the hour.
I know, isn't it adorable? Would you rather time travel to the future or the past?
Future. Kind of know what happened in the past already.
Yeah, but I'm a history major, so some of it was really, really cool, but I still think future because less chance of dying of a communicable disease.
I would like to go to the future just to see how things progress. Which fictional world would you love to live in or visit?
Go with Narnia. But like Narnia while things are going really well.
Yes.
I'd probably go Middle Earth, but before things went really bad.
Yeah.
Kind of close to where the big castles are, but nothing too awesome or important that'll get you crushed by a Dark Lord.
The magical world, Hogwarts.
Yeah. Ravenclaw pride, people.
Hufflepuff.
You are a Hufflepuff. And he is a Slytherin.
Ooh.
There's only one way to settle this.
Well, I'm not fighting a Slytherin.
I left my one at home.
I said it.
One word to describe Ezra.
Loyal.
That's what I was going to say too, so I'll say hot.
Damn it.
That was your word, right?
Yes.
Why do you think he's hot? Because he's never actually described in the book.
I find really humorous people I find that very attractive.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Hot,
That's
There
why
you
I'm
go.
saying
not
witty.
about
Funny dude gets
physical
the girls.
appearance.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Would you rather have a dragon or be a dragon?
Have a dragon.
I'd have to agree. I'd rather have a dragon because I feel like in a lot of the stories, being a dragon can be a bad thing.
Not good
So
news.
depending on which world it's in, if you're being hunted, that's not a
Yeah.
good thing.
I would say have a dragon. Yeah, being a dragon would be kind of boring.
The author you'd love to meet, whether they're alive or deceased.
I would like to meet Susan Cooper, who's an American author who wrote The Dark is Rising, which is my all-time favourite book.
I'm going to go with Douglas Adams. He was an amazing author, but he was also a very, very interesting and intelligent guy. I think you can have some amazing conversations with him.
I'd probably go with Marcus Zusak just because he wrote The Book Thief, which is one of my all-time favourite books. The next question. One word to describe Aiden.
Logical.
I'm going to say complicated.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with manipulative.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bastard.
One word to describe Katie.
Tossing up between sassy and snarky.
I'm going to go brave. She never blinks, like the whole book. She doesn't blink. She's awesome. She's awesome. I love her.
I go with badass.
Yeah, she is.
Being a hack is pretty Badass. Favorite book, all time or of the moment?
My all-time favourite book is The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper.
I'm going to go with Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. That was my favourite book as a kid. It's probably still my favourite book today.
Mine is unsurprisingly The Book Thief.
Yep.
It's just so beautifully written. I love the narration by Death. Next question, favourite word?
My favourite word is longbottom, which is a verb, and it means to grow up unexpectedly hot. It's in honour of Neville.
Oh, okay.
It's what Neville's actor did. And Neville himself.
One of my favourite words is defenestrate. It means to be thrown through a window.
Yeah.
The thing that fascinates me about that is it was happening so frequently at some point in history that we decided we needed a word for it.
It's not my favourite word, but I came across a word in the book. I don't actually think it's a real word, so I don't know what it was, but I think it's disem-elevated. The word was describing people coming off an elevator. And I tried to Google it, and it's not actually a word,
but it makes sense.
Yeah. Biggest bookish pet peeve?
Mine is when characters tell each other things that they all already know. You know, or they tell you stuff that they would never be thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, I walked down the street and got on the train. We used to have steam trains, but these days, you know, they had been updated and were now electric. Like, I don't think that as I get on the train in the morning, and it annoys me when characters give me world building by thinking things they wouldn't.
I'm going to go with cliffhangers. I think cliffhangers are kind of cheap. It's fine to leave some questions unanswered. It's fine to leave the meta plot unresolved. But if you literally leave the hero hanging by his fingers on the cliff and make people wait a year to find out whether they fell off or not.
You're torturing.
Yeah, it's just mean.
I would probably say too much telling rather than showing. Or you see sentences where they show and then they immediately tell the exact same thing, and it's just so redundant.
It's like, give me some credit.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah.
I'm not that stupid.
I don't see it all that often, but when I see it, I kind of blow up. Redundant description, so she pointed with her finger, or he nodded with his head. Like, you can't,
like, what else are you nodding?
Nod with your head. It doesn't work.
Okay, we have one last question.
Okay.
What's your favourite writing music? Song or genre, if you have any writing music?
I don't usually listen to music at all when I write. There's an Italian composer called Ludovico Einaudi, I think he's pronounced. He does like concert pianist stuff with orchestral backing, and that's really cool. But usually the music I listen to is really obnoxious.
Yeah.
Amie will testify to this. There's one song that I listened to over and over when we were working on Illuminae and later books as well. It's by a band called Meshuggah, which is Yiddish for crazy. And there's a particular song they have called Bleed, which is, it's about 7 minutes of absolute obnoxious horror. But there's this kind of mechanical drum beat and this oscillating bass frequency. It sounds almost robotic, and it just puts me in the mindset of a crazy artificial intelligence, which is probably not the best sort of advocacy for the band. But if you do want to know what it feels like to be an insane computer by Meshuggah, they're pretty nice.
Interesting.
So I listen to Muse while I write, and specifically I listen to Madness on loop while I write this book. When I'm not listening to them, which is most of the time, I listen to Joshua Radin, which is like really sweet, one man and his guitar, total opposite to Jared.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's all of the questions. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Lovely. And if you haven't read this book, you need to, because it is actually amazing. We will be doing a fun tag video as well, so you can keep your eyes out for that one. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.